Good morning, everybody. This is Christy Kalabski. It's just about 11:15. Victoria Thomas is also on the call today, and she's going to be fielding questions. So if you've joined a webinar recently, you know that everybody is muted. Go ahead and locate that questions pane on your webinar panel. I'm going to hide mine so you guys can fully see my screen. And then if you do have a question, you can type it into that question section and we will field those sort of as they come along. If anyone was on Remington's call this morning, I shared that on our Facebook page, and then it was actually hard to join it because I think he hit his max capacity, but he was streaming it on Facebook, which was really cool. I'm going to try to get a link to that and send it out. But one of the really cool things that sort of came out of that call is a lot of the big leaders from other brokerages around town were talking, and someone said something that really resonated with me. And it was all about how, everything's kind of crazy right now and we're all wondering what the future holds. But on the bright side, we've been given this gift of time. So Victoria and I are really laser focused in making sure that you have lots of opportunities to do the things in your business that you typically don't have time for. So one of those, of course, is Tucker CRM. So this is going to be sort of the more advanced class. We're not going to talk about adding contacts or organizing contacts. We're going to kind of jump right into activity plans and mass emails, and if you want to enter listings into the system, how that can work for you, as well as goal setting. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. We did share out a link to a more basic version of the Tucker CRM training that we did actually just last week. So it's really recent, but check that out if you do kind of need to go back to basics. So if there's anything that seems a little bit over your head, you might want to go back and watch that other one later on your own time. But let's sort of jump right into it. And before we do, is there anything that you guys, I'm assuming most of you on today's call have been using the CRM at least at some level before today. Is there anything you want to make sure that we cover? And Victoria, I'm going to let you sort of monitor that question panel and see if there's anything we just need to make sure we add to our list today, or we just make sure we don't miss. I want to make this really robust training for you guys. So take a second, type something in. And if you don't have anything, that's okay too. Okay. All right. Cool. Anything, Victoria, or should I jump right into it?
We had a question about MarketWatch updates and newsletters. We do kind of go over that a little bit more in the setup, the basics on how to set up the MarketWatch in those monthly e-newsletters, but I don't know if we have time today, Christy, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, I might actually start there because I had one branch manager asking me yesterday how to actually turn off some of those automated things. And we spend so much time in training telling you guys to turn on all this automation, turn it on, turn it on. Well, obviously, with everything that's kind of going on in the world right now, you don't necessarily want something being automatically sent out that maybe is not as sensitive as we should try to be in this time. So I'm going to totally leave that up to you, but I think that's actually a pretty good place to start. So you guys can see my screen. I'm on my dashboard, which we're going to come back to the dashboard a little bit later, but let's kind of jump right into some of that automation. So I'm going to go to the section over here on the right in my menu that says keep in touch, the two little people. So when you come back later in your own system, just look for the people. That's always going to be your keep in touch section. So we talk in our basic training about always turning on your birthday reminders, your move-in anniversary reminders, and then your monthly e-newsletter. Personal opinion, I see no issue with leaving, of course, your birthday reminders and your move-in anniversary reminders turned on. Most of you probably just have those included in your Google Calendar. So that's just a nice, nothing's going to actually happen when it's someone's birthday. It's just reminding you as their realtor or friend or whatever, hey, so-and-so has a birthday coming up. Now, there is an option for an auto e-card for both the birth date and move-in anniversary. They're not my favorite. I don't have mine turned on. I would rather make that warmer touch. However, if you do have your auto birthday or move-in anniversary cards, I don't necessarily see any issue with just leaving those on right now, because those are still happy, good things. Like people are still having birthdays and move-in anniversaries and all that good stuff. So I wouldn't worry too much about those. What I did want to show you though is where your monthly e-newsletter lives. It's also under this keep in touch section. I have mine on personal preference. I'm probably gonna leave it on. I don't foresee any reason for me personally to turn that off. The monthly e-newsletter is, and I'll just kind of give you an example here in a second of what that looks like. It's just sort of that real estate light content. So it's stuff like, you know, enhancing curb appeal and blah, blah, blah. The vendor does write that content every single month. So I trust that they're gonna do a good job of keeping it pretty timely, but also very kind of neutral, general content. So mine is actually turned on, and we walk you through how to actually do this in the basics class. If you want to turn it off for any reason, all you need to do is just uncheck the month boxes. So for example, if I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna turn off this automation right now, I would just uncheck some upcoming months and then save it. I think by default, every month is checked. I tend in these trainings to just remind you guys, don't overthink your automated stuff. Typically automated emails get about a 10% open rate. So what you're banking on with a lot of this communication is just that you're staying top of mind. So my email subject on my monthly e-newsletter is monthly update from Christy K, your realtor. I don't care if they never open it. I just want them to be reminded that I'm their realtor. I'm still in the business, okay? So I'm gonna save that. The other place I'm going to go, and I want to show you sort of what that monthly newsletter looks like so you can make your decision if you want to leave it on or turn it off. Over here under mass email, it's like the little envelope, and it says mass email. These are the different options you have for your sort of mass email options. We're going to kind of stick with that topic of monthly e-newsletter right now. So I'm going to go to that third tab that says monthly e-newsletter. The current issue, mine already went out in early March because that's how I had it set up, but this is just sort of the back end setup of that. There's my subject line that I had in the other section. And here's sort of what that e-newsletter looks like. It's got my contact information at the top and my photo as well as the Tucker logo. This is pre-written, this sort of introductory note. That's the piece that you might want to consider changing. I always say in classes, like, again, don't overthink it. It's just going to their inbox. But this is a time where if you wanted to kind of maybe make that a little bit more sensitive or make it a little bit more timely with what's going on, you could change that. And then there are always going to be 3 articles. And see, these are kind of timely, right? Like, should you worry about market fluctuations? It's definitely fluctuating right now. So there are 3 articles pre-written by the vendor. That's kind of what it looks like. But if you ever want to customize anything, here's where you do it. Again, I'm under mass email and my monthly e-newsletter. I could customize my personal message right here. I could kind of switch that up with whatever I wanted to say. And if I want to customize any articles, like maybe I just don't want to include this article for whatever reason. It's just too scary of a time and I just don't want that going out. I could just click the exclude button. Mine already went out, so I can't do that right now, but it's simple enough to do. And you can also change your order. So you can move articles around with whatever makes the most sense for you. But again, if you ever want to kind of turn this off for whatever reason for the time being, you do that under keep in touch and you just uncheck the months, okay? Now, the other automated piece that a lot of you probably already have turned on is your Market Watch. If you are in the metro Indianapolis area, you have the capability to send out the monthly Market Watch. It looks like this. It's the one that Jim always writes every month. It's got a little blurb about what's happening in Central Indiana with home sales. And then there's this really nice infographic that our marketing department puts together that just kind of gives you some quick stats. What's happened with home prices, how many sales, what the interest rates are, etc. So that's what it looks like. And again, where I would turn that on or off is under my broker emails. Since that's an FC Tucker specific type email, it's under broker emails. I have mine set to send, but if you want to turn it off, you just change the yes to the no and then save. Okay. All right, any questions about the monthly e-newsletter or the Market Watch before we move on? Okay, I'm gonna go back to my dashboard. It's the icon over in your menu that sort of looks like a gear on the dashboard of your car, or dial on the dashboard of your car. You can fully customize what sort of information appears on your dashboard. And I'm going to hide my menu for just a second by clicking the arrow there at the bottom. The way that you'll customize your dashboard is up here at the kind of very top, kind of small, it says customize dashboard. And you can include or exclude specific pieces of information. Again, I would probably make this the pieces that you're using in the CRM. I'm going to save it. And then if you want to change, how do I change the order? Do I drag them here? I think, yep. Still under customization, you can sort of drag the widgets in the order that you want them. So I kind of like having my prospecting activities right at the top. I think that's probably the most important thing that we're doing right now, is not losing sight of all of our prospecting. So I personally like to keep that one right there at the top. But you can drag those around and include or exclude whatever widgets you want. And that just kind of gives you a nice snapshot of the information that you want to look at. So that's your dashboard. Over on the right-hand side of your screen where your contacts are, I am actually going to search for one of my contacts, our buddy George. We always have George Clooney as sort of our test guy. One quick note about searching in the CRM is less is more. So it kind of works like a MyBor search where every specific piece of information is its own separate field, and the CRM is searching by field. So if I typed in George Clooney actually doesn't exist in a field together because I have George in the first name field and Clooney in the last name field. So I just searched by George and then there he is. So less is more when you're searching. I see that I've got him over here on the right. Before I actually click on his name to get into his contact card, I just kind of wanted to show you a couple quick links that you can do to get some additional information about our buddy George. The first one are these three little dots. I really love this. You know, a lot of us are in a really good habit of writing handwritten notes, and I love getting someone's address just from that three little dot section. I just clicked on it and then it showed me George's home address. I can take a quick note. So maybe I saw something that George posted on Facebook that I want to remember, or I ran into him at the grocery store and he said, oh my gosh, Christy, isn't this so crazy, everything that's going on? You know, when the dust settles, we really want to talk a little bit more seriously about listing our house. So I might want to make a note of that conversation and then possibly do some follow-up work later. So I'm going to click on that little, it's like a checkbox with a pencil. And that's just a quick note that I can make in regards to George. So thinking about listing follow-up late summer, something like that, whatever it is. The note type list is fully customizable. Anywhere in the CRM where you see where it says modify list, you can add sort of your own category. Now, just one quick note, I like to put everything in my personal CRM under this note section. And reason being, if I ever change CRMs in the future, or I need to extract my contacts and I want the notes that I have written associated with them, The only field of these that will extract with that information later is note. So that's kind of why I like to use note, and then I might just put like left message or text, maybe just to kind of trigger my mind of what that was, or saw live meeting, something like that. So you can kind of make your own notes there, but feel free to use that modify list too. I don't want to scare you away from that, but just kind of think through later the information that you may want extracted. Okay. So I'm going to save that new note for my buddy George. And then if I want to create myself like a to-do based on that note, which in this case I do, like he's seriously considering selling his house. Like I don't want to forget that. I better put that on my calendar, make myself a to-do so I don't forget. So now I'm going to go to quick task. It's right under the pencil with the, it's right under the pencil. It's more of the checkbox. So maybe I would put something in here like, hey, I need to follow up on possibly listing. Said late summer, I don't know, whatever note's going to trigger my mind. And then, maybe like mid-July, it would be a good time for me to get back in touch with my buddy George. Start date and due date. If you have like more of a project that maybe you need to run comps and then get comps to somebody, you can give yourself a little bit more wiggle room. The set reminder is nice because you can get an email reminder, which is awesome, super helpful. Put more notes in here, obviously, at the bottom. And I'm going to save that note for George. So without even clicking into George's contact card, I was able to get more information, make a note, and then also create a task or a to-do regarding this contact. So now that I sort of walked you through all of those kind of quick access pieces, I want to show you how to get to those very same things, from George's contact card. So now I'm going to click on his name, which opens up like the full George Clooney information. All of those things we just did, that enter note or quick task, those are also up here at the top in blue. And I can even create an appointment. So I can even put something on my calendar in the CRM that will sync with my Google Calendar, as long as you have that set up, which is covered in the basics CRM training, just so I'm not having to manage 2 different calendars. I can create an appointment like, hey, maybe I'm talking to him and he's like, yeah, let's meet after the 4th of July and sit down and hammer this out. Cool, I can put that on my calendar. So here's George. Here's all the information I have entered for him. And if I ever want to edit anything here, like maybe I got more information from him or his email address changed or whatever, I just go to this edit contact over here kind of in purple. And now it opens the field and I can add more information. All the fields are now editable again. Okay. I'm going to save it. Contact profile is probably where you spend the most of your time with your contacts, but you also have all of these other tabs available in each contact's contact card. So I'm going to go to keep in touch next. Keep in touch, of course, probably one of the most important things we do in the CRM. This is just showing me that George gets my monthly e-newsletter. I've captured his birth date, so it's going to remind me of his birthday. And it's also going to remind me of his move-in anniversary. And if I, for whatever reason, want to turn those off, maybe I find out down the road that George is like super sensitive about his birthday and does not like getting older, I could just come in here and deactivate it. But in our basic CRM training, we show you guys how to set this up sort of on the global level. So you don't have to come in here and do much as you're adding contacts. If you've got your birthday reminders turned on, for example, any new person you add and you add a birthday for them, you'll just automatically be reminded however you have it set up. If I want to turn on some sort of recurring keep in touch call, I can also do that. I can do that on the individual level. I can also do that on a global level. But for example, maybe George is kind of he's thinking of listing and he's a, a high touch client, I might just want to make sure I turn on like a quarterly call. So I'm reminded, just not to kind of lose sight of George. So the system's going to remind me, hey, you haven't talked to George in a couple months, give him a buzz. So I can do that in this section as well. And then you can also create new events for your contacts. So sky's the limit there. If there is another date, here's where you might add like kid birthdays. You really only have by default main contact and spouse birthdays. But if you do know the kids' birthdays and you want to keep track of those and not forget them, this would be where you do it. You would just create a new event. You basically just give it a name, what the date is. Do I want it in my calendar? Yes or no. So it's relatively simple. So I'm not going to do that right now, but you do have that option there. And then let's talk about activity plans for a second. You have the ability to assign contacts to specific activity plans. So I'm going to hop out of George's contact card. We're going to come back to it really quickly here, but just to kind of show you all of the options you have available. So back over here in my menu on the left, there is a section called activity plans. It's right there in the middle. It's the calendar with the clock. And there are some really great activity plans that you can assign to people within your database. So really, really good example. You probably have folks right now that had said, I want to list in the spring, I'm ready to sell, and all of this crazy stuff is going on, and they're like, we got to pump the brakes. Or maybe they've been talking about selling for a couple of years now and it just hasn't really quite come to fruition. But you want to make sure you're staying in good contact with them and they're not wandering into some other agent's open house and getting kind of scooped up that way. So there are some really, really great marketing plans within this system that you can check out sort of later on your own time. So sort of a good example of the one we just talked about, someone wants to sell, we just don't know when. There's a really great marketing plan called the 2-year seller prospecting plan that I could assign to a contact, and the system's going to automatically keep in touch. Now, what I love about these activity plans is they're automatic, so you can set it and forget it. Obviously, right now, things are a little wild. You might want to really go through and read these emails and make sure you're okay with them going out. And I would say, by and large, most of them are. They're simple things like, here's what you can do to make your home ready to list. That's stuff that's never really going to change, right? Most important qualities to look for in a realtor, et cetera, et cetera. So you can come in here and sort of check out these plans, see what the content is. A lot of the automated ones are very heavy email based because it's nice and easy to set it and forget it. And you can also customize them. So let's just say, for example, I really like this 2-year seller prospecting plan, but I'm going to customize it maybe a little bit more towards my business or just sort of the environment we're in at the moment because it is sort of unique. What I want you guys to get yourself in the habit of is make a copy before you start to edit it. So see on this line where it says 2-year seller plan, if I come over here to the right, there's a little button for copy. So first I'm going to copy. I would suggest putting your name or your initials at the front of the name of the plan, and that just makes it easy for you to search for your specific activity plans later. If you don't name them, you might be like, why do I have 2 of these? What's the copy? What's the original? But then I also really like to leave the full name of what the actual activity plan was called, so you know what you started with later. You might be like, what in the heck? What is that? Where did it come from? So I sort of like, that's kind of my best suggestion is you name it, your initials or your name, and then leave the full name of the original plan. And I'm going to save it. So now I'm in my version of that activity plan. And now I can go through and edit. So maybe I want to change up email verbiage, or maybe I don't want to send out, there's a demand for your kind of home thing right now. I can just delete that one if I don't want to use it. So you can kind of go through and say, yep, I like it, meh, not so much. And then you can save. So now I have a Christie version of the 2-year seller prospecting plan. So pour yourself a glass of wine later and come in here and explore some of those really cool plans that are available to you. And then let's go back to George for a second. And now I can assign that activity plan to George. So I went back to George, I went to keep in touch. And down here is where I can actually assign a specific plan to him because he's the contact that said, hey, I'm thinking about selling sometime soon. I named that plan CK test because then it's really simple for me to search when I'm ready to assign it to a contact. My initials are actually not the best, and you might have initials that aren't the best because the letters CK are in lots of words in that order. So anyway, use what works. If you name everything Christy or Christy K, of course, that's going to be easy to find. So I'm going to assign that activity plan to my buddy George. And then you can determine, do I want that plan to start today? Should it start tomorrow? Maybe Monday? Whatever. So now I have all of those pieces of the activity plan I just showed you a little bit ago. And here are the dates that are going to correspond because in the activity plan section, it said, this thing happens 10 days after the start date. Well, here's the actual date corresponding. And let's say, for example, this phone call, I know I'm going to be out of town on June 8th, or he's going to be out of town, or whatever. You can change that. You can customize those dates, or you can just say, we just had a conversation today. I don't think I need to get in touch with him quite that soon. I'm not going to do that initial email. And you can just uncheck it. And then that customizes the plan for George. Okay. So now I'm just going to click the purple button that says assign plan and create tasks. And so now what sort of happens in the back end is all of those tasks are on my to-do list. So any of those phone calls, anything where I actually need to do something and take action is going to go on my to-do list within the CRM. And then all those emails are just going to automatically go out to George. And then let's say somewhere down the road, and let me show you that actually really quick. I'm going to go to my task list. Over here on the right, it looks like a little checkbox. Here's everything that I have to do, and when is it due? And here you can kind of see, hey, here's the stuff assigned to George Clooney. You can also search in this section. So say I have a lot going on, a lot of people I'm following up with, I can always search by name. Okay, there's just the George Clooney stuff. And I can say, oh, I did that, I did that, I did that. Those are done. Cool. And then let's say, for example, I follow up with him for a while. He's like, okay, Christy, I'm ready. Let's list this house. I don't need to keep sending him those automated emails. So the way that I turn off all of those other things that haven't happened yet is go back to George, go back to keep in touch, and then I can unassign and delete anything incomplete. And the system is still going to keep track of what I already did for George. So those 3 things that I already completed are going to show up under my activities and history, I believe. Yep, there they are. Those are the 3 I did. So I still have a record of those. Anything that's pending or still outstanding is there. And then there was that note I took earlier. That's sort of in my contact history section. So I just covered a lot. We talked about keep in touch and then sort of the beauty of these things we called activity plans. And I showed you guys marketing plans. Marketing plans can be assigned to people like George. Now the other activity plans that are available, so I'm back in my activity plans section. This should look familiar. Those are the ones I just showed you, all the marketing plans. Under marketing plans are listing plans and closing plans. So these plans I can assign to properties. So now that George is like, hey, let's roll and list this house, I can now theoretically assign a listing plan to that property and keep track of all of the different pieces of things I need to do to get that listing ready, to put it on the market, all the follow-up pieces. You know, when we rolled this CRM out about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, market was crazy. Like, it's been crazy for a while. You didn't really have to think too much about following up for listings because properties were selling so fast. Well, who knows what's going to happen now? Things are appearing to slow down a little bit. So it's not a bad idea to get yourself in the habit of, oh gosh, you know, we've been on the market a week and we haven't sold. I need to communicate with my seller so they're not freaking out, and remind them that this is normal and we're doing everything we can, and here's the traffic we've seen on your property. So it's just stuff like that. So anytime you see under these listing or closing plans the initials FCT, those are plans that Tucker has created. So FCT, FC Tucker, we've created a couple for the listing side and the closing side. And then anything that doesn't have FCT, that was provided to you guys by the vendor. So there's some really cool content in there. Definitely check those out. But the FCT plans are the ones that we sort of created within, like, here's how real estate works in Central Indiana. And then the very same thing kind of works with these activity plans. So let's say, for example, this FCT 6-month listing plan, this is created for, hey, my listing goes live until we either pend, sell, or expire. So here are all the pieces that sort of go along with this listing. Schedule an open house, create a, well, not right now, create a listing flyer, post to social media, send your live email to sellers, like all of those different little pieces that we don't want to forget to do something, because that's a problem. It's just a good reminder. So check those out. Same thing holds true with the other activity plans. Say I really like that plan, but I want to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to make a copy first. I'm going to do that CK test again. Boop. And here it is. So here's where I could start to make this a little bit more specific to my business. So maybe I don't, let's see here, what can I delete? Maybe I just don't do open houses. Delete. Not sure why. Well, not right now, I wouldn't do open houses, but you guys get the idea. But you can tweak this for your own business, okay? And then save it. And then we could apply, theoretically, this plan, there it is, to George's listing when it goes live. And then closing plans work the exact same way. So let's hop back into George. And I want to, I did such a good job keeping in touch with him. He's ready to list. So let me show you how you actually assign that activity plan to George's property. So I'm going to move over here to this properties tab under George Clooney. And I need to first assign a property to him. So you can assign multiple properties if you've got someone that owns rentals and vacation homes, et cetera, or just one property that they've bought with you. You can do that. So I'm going to click on add. I sort of think less is more in this section. So I'm going to put the bare minimum in for George's house. I'm going to say it's a residential property, and I'm going to pull the address. The one that he wants to sell is his primary. So I'm going to pull that address from whatever I entered earlier as his home address. So that's it. Residential property, what the address is, save. So now you can see under George's property summary, he has an associated property. And for example, in this scenario, this is the one he actually wants to sell. So I'm going to go over here to the right. Next to the trash can, don't click that. Click the piece of paper with the plus sign. Here's how I'm going to create that listing. I'm going to do bare minimum again. I'm going to put information in like price, listing commission and my commission. So that it would be, let's just say 3.5, 3.5. Listing start date, when do we think we're gonna go live? We'll say May 1st. And I think November 1st would be a 6-month listing. I love this. Include in calendar and send reminder. Do not let me forget that property is going to expire. Hope it doesn't, but who knows? You can put more information if you want, but I'm kind of all about bare minimums here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and save. Okay, so now, oh, I love this. The system's like, hey, you had called George a past client previously. It seems like there's some action happening. Yep, now he's a current client. Save. So notice for a minute, so before we were in George's contact card, now we are in his listing. It's sort of, once we saved that, it shot us into his listing. The other way that you can get to all your listings, if you're going to do them this way, if you want to kind of keep track of them and do the activity plans, you click on the little for sale sign. That takes you to your active business section. And then here's my buddy George. So we're back in the 9279 North Meridian property. So here's where I can assign that 6-month listing activity plan to George's property and be reminded of all of the different things I've got to do to make sure I'm doing a good job as his agent. So over here is assign new activity plan. Again, I love that keyword search because I'm going to search for CK test, which is what I called the one I just created. There it is. Now I think we said he was going to go live on May 1st. So I'm just going to change that start date to May 1st. Click continue. And then here are all of the pieces with the associated dates that I need to do. So let's say, for example, George, he's a celebrity, he's super private. He does not want me posting his listing to social media. I can just uncheck that task just for George's listing. Maybe he doesn't want me to do an email blast to my colleagues, whatever. So you can customize again on the individual listing or individual client level. And I'm going to assign that plan and create all of those to-do pieces. So with the listing and closing plans, it's a lot less automated for really good reason, right? Like when you have an actual listing, like you have to do the things. Like the CRM isn't going to put your listing into the MLS or post open houses for you. It's just going to remind you to do those things. So there's a lot less automation. Plus, you don't want an email to automatically accidentally go out that says, hey, congrats, you're closing tomorrow. And the deal just completely crashed and burned and fell apart. Like that would not be good. So very, very few things are automated in the listing and closing plans, whereas the marketing plans, it's pretty much all automated. So hopefully that kind of makes sense in your brain. So let's go back to that task list where we were earlier, and I'll show you now, okay, here's all the listing stuff for George Clooney. And same exact thing, you can scroll through, you can see all of your to-dos, you can do a search again by property or client name. You can complete, all the different tasks. Okay, I did those, I'm done. And you can even print the list. So if you are really tactical and like to kind of check things off or cross them out on an actual to-do list, no worries, you could print the list and do it that way. But this is just basically, again, these activity plans are reminders of the pieces that you'll want to do for this listing. Okay, and then let's say, for example, the property sells or we go under contract. Cool, I don't need to be reminded to check in with George and do a price reduction if we are pending or we sold or whatever. So the way that you would turn the plan off, so to speak, you can go back into George and his properties, or you can go to your active business. There's that address. Here's my activity plans, and I can say, okay, we're pending. I'm going to unassign and not be reminded for the stuff I just don't need to do. But same thing, it's going to keep track of what I already did for George. Okay? So if you ever need to go back and say, oh my God, did I do such and such? I checked it off my list. we're good. Okay. So that was properties and active business, okay? I'm gonna kind of pause for a second and just see if any questions come in about that, because I know that's a little complicated or complex. While you guys are thinking about questions, I'm gonna give Victoria a chance here to throw any out at me. One of the things I like about tracking your business within the CRM, and of course, the activity plans are great for just keeping you on track and reminding you whether you're a new agent or maybe you run a team and you want things done a very specific way. There's a lot of really great applicability there. But here's one of the other things I just love about tracking it in the CRM. One of your widgets on your dashboard is this active business snapshot. And it's kind of cool to see, like, oh my gosh, I have $8,700 in the hopper for commissions. Like, let's close that property. Or, man, I've got some potential stuff out there. I gotta lock that down. So it's a really good way for you to kind of track how you're doing, what's pending, what's coming. So it can be a nice way to kind of keep it all straight. So that's your active business snapshot on your dashboard. Victoria, do we have any questions come in about activity plans or active business?
No, not about activity plans or anything like that. When you were talking about activity plans though, and setting up like automated emails and things like that, I did have a question about if an agent has something created like custom from marketing, is there a way that they can send that out in a mass email?
Yes,
So
absolutely. So you guys can, really good question. I showed you to kind of like start with an existing plan, then you can tweak it if you want. You can also just create your own sort of ad hoc marketing plan or listing plan or closing plan. And you can do that I'm back in the activity plan section. You can just kind of start fresh and start from scratch. And that totally works. It might be a little daunting if you're not super familiar with how these plans work, but you can also, like your question about, hey, I have this really great graphic that I want to send out for marketing or whatever. You can add those into emails over here on the left-hand side where we were a second ago for mass email. There are already some templates created, but you can again create your own, and that's create new email. Give it a name, and then here's where your content can go. And this should look kind of familiar to you. This is very similar to like what Gmail sort of looks like if you're adding a signature or something. You can do graphics. So if marketing has an image created for you, you can add it there. You can hyperlink. You can even drop video into this section. It could just be a message, whatever you want to do. But think of using this mass email section. Like if you have content that you want going out to a lot of people at one time, this is a really great place to do so. Now, of course, there's a lot of great benefits from just using Gmail too, right? But there are some differences here. Like this is more like that mass type communication. If you want to track open rates and click-throughs and stuff like that, this is your platform to do so. The other thing I love about the mass email section is there's just some really great content. What's the one you can do something really similar in Gmail, but I love sometimes just like pulling pre-written emails and like dropping them in my Gmail. Like this seller closing info is a really good example. I use this one all the time. We have already written this email, so basically you don't have to. It's all those reminders like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're closing soon. Like, don't forget to do this stuff. So I usually kind of come in here and just copy, boop, and then paste it in my Gmail. Because to me, this email is part of an activity plan. You can have this go out automatically if you want, or you're reminded to send it, or you can just copy it and paste it and send it from your Gmail, because it's usually just only going to like 2 people. I don't really need to see if they opened it or not. Hopefully they did. That's really important stuff, right? but I sometimes like to just kind of come in here and copy and paste the text and drop it in my Gmail, and away we go. But yes, you can absolutely create any sort of email communication in here. Add them to existing activity plans, create your own, or just send them individually. Great question. Hopefully that answered it. I will say too, anytime you're in the system and you see these little kind of help buttons, there is awesome tutorial help kind of baked right into the CRM system. So for example, later you might be like, oh my gosh, I really want to create some of my own email content and do an activity plan and blah, 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 but I forget how. If you stumble your way anywhere in the system, you will see a little question mark for help. And if you click on that, it opens a new email and it kind of walks you through what you can do in that space. It also reminds you of their exact contacts phone support, email support. And then also these little like play buttons will give you a tutorial. So this is just going to be a video that's actually going to walk you through creating a mass email. So super duper helpful stuff. Don't ignore those. They're really, really nice. And then we always get the question, I feel like every single training we got the question, how do I know what my open rate is, who's unsubscribing, all that good stuff. You do that also under the mass email section, and I'm over here under campaign reporting. And you can select a date range. And would you look at that? My open rate's almost 19%. I'm better than average. But I can see, you know, exactly how many messages were open, if I had any bounce backs. The bounce backs are probably the one thing I would encourage you to look at, because bounce back is typically like an undeliverable email. Like they either gave you a fake email address, or maybe you typed it in wrong, or you couldn't read their handwriting or something like that. So I'm gonna go to where my bounce backs. View my results, and then it always takes me a second to get to my actual bounce backs. Hang on. Oh, here it is. So I had 2 in that month range, but here they are based on the email that I sent. So here was my February market watch. I had 1 bounce back. So I might want to go in there and say, okay, what happened? How was that a bounce back? I had 1 hard bounce, and it was, there it is, bounce back stats. It's probably some goofy training email that oh, Adam Levine at adam@thevoice.com isn't his actual email address. Who knew? So that's how you find it. So it's a little kind of tricky to get in there to your actual bounce back stats, but just know that you want to pick a date range and then find the email where you actually had the bounce backs, and then you can go under your bounce back stats. Okay. And you can also see your unsubscribes, but don't be mean to yourself. Don't worry about it. All right. I'm gonna hop back to my dashboard for a second. Okay, I have probably like 3 more things I want to show you, and I know we're kind of getting here to the end of the, oh, it's already noon. I understand if anyone has to jump off of the call, this is being recorded, but I did want to show you like 3 more key areas, and I'll go pretty quick, that can be really, really awesome and helpful for you guys. So the first one is goal setting. You'll sort of see that very top widget I have on my dashboard is my prospecting activities. And this is based on goals that I have set for myself. And you can do the very same thing. So under this little bullseye section, this is your goal setting. And if you've never done this before, this is probably the screen that you'll see pop up first. There's like 15 or 16 questions that basically back you into what sort of activity you need to do to make the income you want. So you'll type your income in. I'm just going to kind of click through mine really quickly. It asks you your average commission per transaction, what percentage are sellers, what percentage of buyers, how many of those transactions typically sell. If you're a new agent, I would suggest checking with your manager just to kind of get some office stats at kind of some averages. That's a really good place to start. Start date of your year, how many weeks do you want to work? How many contacts would you like to add to your database? Referrals. Phone calls, notes, and pop buys is a lot of that activity that you need to do to kind of make that commission. So that is a really good section. Okay, so now that I entered, and I clicked through that really quickly, but go back, do your own goals. Basically, the system says, hey, based on how much money you want to make and how much commission you typically get from listings and buyers, here's the activity that you need to do. So that's what translates into my prospecting activities. Back on my dashboard, right here. So I'm falling woefully short this week, unfortunately. That's okay. So I'm going to click on George Clooney and show you how you actually track these. So that widget was called prospecting activities. So if you want to track, the notes you write and the calls you make and the pop buys you do and listing presentations, all that good stuff that is going to generate business for you, when you're in a contact card, prospecting update is up here in the blue. It's the one we didn't talk about yet on purpose. So if I say, hey, I made a phone call to George today, and then I save it, that phone call now just went onto my prospecting activities. So it's a good way for you to kind of keep track and see where you are in relation to achieving your goals. So that is goal setting. And then the last one I want to show you is reports. Reports are really cool. I love them for being able to pull chunks of data out and do something with it. So I really like to do move-in anniversary CMAs for my clients. So anyone that I've sold a house to, I really like to kind of research that data and mail them something with a handwritten note and just kind of give them helpful information. So let's say, for example, we're at the end of March. I want to see all of my clients that have move-in dates in April, just so I kind of know what's coming. I'm going to click on that move-in anniversary report. I'm going to change it to April. And then view. And then I can see that I'm going to have 4 of those reports that I need to do in the month of April. And I can print that list or just calendar it or whatever I want to do with that. You can do similar stuff with birthdays. If you're going to be mailing cards or doing special pop buys, check out those reports just to kind of give you key pieces of information. All right, and I lied. I've got one more thing to show you, but I promise it's good. I did cover this in the basic CRM class, but I want to show it to you in this class as well because I think it's really, really helpful. You can search by contact sort of in bulk in your system, and typically you'll just be searching one by one and doing stuff with them, but sometimes you just want to pull bigger lists for whatever reason. So under the search section or under the search bar is a search button. If you click on that, it gives you different categories that you can search within. So maybe I want to just look for anyone that's in my A-list client group. Who are those people? George Clooney, Adam Levine, and Brad Pitt. Cool. And then I can do something with those specific contacts. Maybe I'm going to add them to an activity plan or create a keep in touch call. Those are maybe folks I want to make sure I'm calling every quarter. I could create a mass email, export the list, whatever. There's just some different options I can do kind of by searching in bulk. Oops. The other thing you can do is, especially if you maybe haven't worked too much in your CRM and you want to categorize people, again, click on that search button. This will give you your full list of contacts in your database. Maybe you haven't assigned people to your A-list yet and you need to do so. So you can just kind of scroll through your list and say okay, they're A-list, 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 whatever, select those contacts, and then again, you can take action with that group. In this case, I want to add them to my A-list contacts. That's how I would do it. So that is how you search. Okay. I'm back on my dashboard. I will pause here. That is most of what I wanted to cover with you guys today. Hopefully it was really, really helpful and you're excited about what this can do for your business. Like I said at the beginning, this is the most perfect time to organize your CRM. So hopefully you're taking advantage of some of this downtime and getting yourself organized. And we'll stick around for just a few minutes for questions. But thanks for joining us. We have anything, Victoria?
Yeah, Chrissy, I have a question regarding sort of like searching and exporting reports.
Mm-hmm.
I had an agent ask that early on when we sort of adopted this, they were told only to use a certain field in the prospecting update because the other areas weren't exporting. Is that still the case, or can you search by anything? Can you export by any field?
So remember when I entered, I think that note for George, and I said, if you put everything in notes under note, that will export. Now, keep in mind, any CRM system, like it's hard to get a lot of that data out later. So prospecting, for example, I do not believe actually exports. So if you're keeping track of your prospecting in the system, which I think is a great thing to do, it's not necessarily going to export later, but I can't really think of a reason why you'd necessarily want to. Like, do you really need to keep track of every single time you sent someone a handwritten note? I mean, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if you want to make sure you have that forever and ever and ever, just put it under notes, note, and the note type has to be note. Okay. But prospecting, update stuff, that does not export. Okay. But it will, of course, translate into that really cool widget that I showed you on the dashboard.
Cool. I don't have any other questions.
All righty. Cool. Well, definitely reach out to us if you have questions. Your best bet, though, is probably support@exactcontact.com. You can email them or call them. And then one other final note as we wrap up, this system has an awesome app that sort of goes hand in hand with it. So it's nice to have that kind of mobile capability. If you want that app, if you think you're going to use it, it's Exact Contact is the name of the app. IXACT. So download that, and yeah, it's a great kind of piece to go hand in hand with this desktop version. And we hope you guys enjoy it and are using it, and happy prospecting.